take a look at the raw numbers of what these indicators look like. I've got both down volume and up volume in my indices list here. I've also got the declining number of issues and the advancing number of issues. And if you just take a look at these numbers, it's very hard to determine any type of trend when you have these kind of numbers. So you have, but these are the symbols that you would use in the TOS platform in order to access these numbers. It's DVAL, UVAL, DECN, ADVN. This is the advancing issues of the New York Stock Exchange. That's the raw number. There's 643 issues up on the day so far. This is the declining number of issues for the New York Stock Exchange. There are 2,412 issues declining today. This is the volume in which these advancing issues have so far generated on the day. So this up volume is the total volume of all of these 647 issues that are advancing. And the down volume is the total volume for all of these declining issues. And when we chart these, what I do is I chart the difference between the up volume and the down volume and the advancing versus the declining issues, and you get something like this. This is the volume. The volume is on the top. Usually I put it on the bottom. And the number of issues that are either declining or advancing are on the top here. And it's very interesting because, for example, sometimes I'll sit here and I'll look at this and I'll notice that, in fact, let me go to this same chart because I use 5-minute charts on these. Let me just go down to a 5-minute chart. I'll bring these back up. For example, there was a rally here right around 12:30. Now, the Dow Industrials averages right now are down 287 points. And right here there was a rally right around 12:25. Well, at 12:25 down here, that's where the rally started. Now, how would you determine whether or not that was a real rally or just a fake rally, a rally within this really bearish day that we're having? Well, one thing that I used is the fact that, okay, well, yeah, there was a surge in number of issues advancing on the day rather than declining, but you can see they started out at a very low level, and they started to advance here. Well, what happened to volume? Because this measures the amount of volume, the raw number of volume to the upside versus the downside. And the way that you enter this into the charts is simply $UVOL minus sign $DVOL. All this does is it charts the difference between the up volume that I showed you over here. This is the volume that all of these stocks advancing are generating on the day versus the volume on the declining issues. So these are the number of stocks declining at this moment, and that's their volume just for those declining issues. And generally what happens when you have a rally of any kind, you want to see where the money goes. Where's the money headed? Because when you track volume, in addition to price, in addition to the number of advancing or declining issues, money is really what talks on Wall Street. I mean, that is, money flow is just about everything. So we had a huge advance in the number of issues here that were actually starting to turn around and go higher. We had a slight surge in prices down here, right in this level. But what happened? Well, we didn't get such a big surge in the volume. The volume was extremely light on this increase in the number of issues. Let's also go over to one of my favorite indicators here, because sometimes I have these three all at the same time going up. I call this the happy family. my happy family charting technique. Basically, you can think of price as like the child of the family, because it's really erratic sometimes. Sometimes it'll go up, sometimes it'll go down. It's not very smooth. I mean, it just kind of bounces all over the place. And that's what children do, especially small children. They just bounce all over the place. They don't have any rhyme or rhythm. They don't have any plan. They just kind of, they just go up and down. The number of advancing and declining issues is the mother of the family. She's a little bit more stable than the children, but she still is erratic. I am sorry to all the women out there. Just, in general, they tend to be a little bit more emotional. But the father is the volume, and he's a little bit more steady. And you can see that even though the advancing issues and the declining issues tend to move around quite a bit, and so does price, volume tends to be fairly steady. So when volume says, hey, look, there's an advance here, but the volume is not going up considerably, then you have a divergence. So, for example, let's say you saw this price increase around $12.25. You saw the price is starting to increase here. Would you trust that price? Would you trust the fact that prices are headed up? Well, if you looked at the number of advancing and declining issues here, yeah, it did follow up. We had a huge number of, a huge increase here at the same time. It was right around 12.25. A huge number of issues were advancing rather than declining. So that's a good sign. You've got prices increasing, and you've got more advancing issues rather than declining issues in this chart. However, when you looked at volume barely moved. In other words, none of the big money, none of the insiders on Wall Street were following this move at all. There was hardly any volume into this movement. So it was pretty sure, you could say with a high degree of probability that the downward momentum would continue because of the lack of volume here on this advance. So this would be a very poor time in order to go long. If you were day trading, which I do not recommend, however, if you were day trading, if you had these three indicators up, you would see that, hey, prices are starting to stabilize in here, and they're starting to go up little by little. Every single time there's a higher low, a higher low. You got three higher lows here. You've got a breakout here, actually. If you drew a trend line right across the top of these, you've got a breakout right here at 1245. And at 1245 here, oh boy, you're right up here. You've also had a breakout. For those who are into traditional technical analysis. And all a breakout means is that the previous high, I didn't draw the line right, but it's in that area. This high was taken out and advanced the price. Well, if we came down to volume here, you can see that the previous high was over here, and that was not taken out. So there was a divergence between these indicators. And that would, in most cases, what you want to do is simply follow the money. You can think of this indicator of the difference between the volume on the issues that are going up and the volume on the issues going down as really the money flow. In other words, when this is going down, is money flowing out of stocks or into stocks? Is there more selling pressure or is there buying pressure? And in this case, since the beginning of the day, there's been more selling pressure than buying pressure. And when you follow this all the way down, there was a little bit of buying coming in here, but it was fairly weak. What you'd like to see on the volume is a huge green bar here that might indicate that, in fact, prices are going up dramatically, and there's lots of volume going into that move. Because you want to follow the money. You always want to follow the money in these types of markets. So